Hi, hello to all NEET aspirants. Hope you all are fine and doing great. Now we are going to discuss about most demanded topic from the chapter Principles of Inheritance and Variation, that is pedigree analysis. Many a times questions might not be asked from this topic, but they are expected every year. Question from pedigree analysis is expected every year. We can expect tough question also. So don't skip this topic when you are going through this chapter. It is very simple beta, very simple and easy. Just stay with me for 15 to 20 minutes. Everything will be clear to you. We will also solve few questions, right? So yes, first you have to understand what is pedigree analysis. Pedigree analysis is nothing but analysis of traits in several generations of a family. Through pedigree analysis, we will get to know how a specific trait is transferred across the generations in a family. Okay, we will get to know about how the specific traits are transferred across the family across many generations. This is more highlighted after Mendelian rediscoveries. After Mendelian principles are rediscovered, then to analyze all the Mendelian disorders more clearly, like how they are transferring across the generations, pedigree analysis got highlighted. So yes, before getting to know about pedigree analysis, you should clearly know about the symbols that we use in pedigree analysis. Just from the symbols of pedigree analysis, you got a question in the year 2023 NEET. Okay, in the year 2023 NEET, you have got a question regarding symbols of pedigree analysis only. So yes, if it is just a square box, then it is male. It is circle without any highlighting in it. This is a female. Then this symbolizes the sex which is unspecified. Any individual sex it is unspecified in the pedigree diagram, then this is the symbol for that. A dot at the center in the circle will indicate carrier female. Now you might be getting a doubt, what is a carrier female? Carrier female is nothing but it holds the trait of the disease, but it will not show, the female will not show any diseased phenotype. Okay, female will not show any disease, but then it holds that gene and transfers to the next generation. That is why it is called as carrier female. Carrier female will transfer the disease from one generation to the other generation. It holds just one of the diseased allele. Okay, so this is about carrier female. Next, these are unaffected individuals, this is affected individuals. If there is a single line adjoining male, that is square and circle, this is mating, and unaffected parents, affected children. Here, if they are dead, this is the symbol they will use. Mating between relatives, this is the question which is asked in 2023. Mating between individuals is linked by two lines beta. If it is only one line, it is normal mating. If it is two lines, this indicates mating between relatives. Next, parents unaffected and children also unaffected is shown by this diagram. Clear with all the symbols of pedigree analysis? Now we will enter into the pedigree analysis. Before entering, we should have a clear idea on the Mendelian disorders beta. Once let us recall it quickly in 2 minutes. Mendelian disorders are of two types. Okay, Mendelian disorders are of two types. One is autosomal disorders, second is sex linked or allosomal disorders. One is autosomal disorders, second is sex linked or allosomal disorders. Okay, autosomal disorders are of two types. Okay, again autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive. Autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive diseases are shown whenever the disease is on autosomes. If you take a human cell, inside the nucleus, how many autosomes do we have? 22 pairs of autosomes. 22 pairs of autosomes and one pair of allosome we have. If the disease is transferred through the autosomal pairs or autosome chromosomes, then it is called as autosomal disorders, and autosomal dominant disorders are predicted either in the homozygous condition or in the heterozygous condition, as they are following the Mendelian pattern of inheritance. Dominant traits are expressed both in the homozygous and heterozygous condition. And autosomal recessive, pakka it should be in the homozygous recessive condition only, then only the disease is expressed. X-linked if it is dominant, again the same scenario, disease should be on the, either it can be on the 2 X chromosomes or it can be on only 1 X chromosome, only on 1 X chromosome also disease will be visible. Okay. In recessive, definitely it should be homozygous recessive condition. Y-linked diseases, if the disease is on Y chromosome, definitely it will be passing from father to son. Okay. Now we should know about the diseases also. What diseases comes under autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, X-linked recessive specifically according to our NCERT. Autosomal dominant disease includes myotonic dystrophy. Myotonic dystrophy. Autosomal recessive disease includes sickle cell anemia, cystic fibrosis, phenylketonuria and thalassemia. These are the diseases which comes under autosomal recessive. Most importantly, questions appear more frequently from X-linked recessive, and this X-linked recessive pattern of inheritance is most commonly seen. X-linked recessive includes 2 diseases from your NCERT. Those are color blindness and hemophilia. These are the 2 diseases under X-linked recessive. You can take a screenshot of it if you want. This table is very much important beta. You have to fix it in your mind. Next, let us analyze how we can clearly analyze or identify a trait from the pedigree diagram. If a pedigree diagram is given, we have to identify whether it is autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, X-linked dominant, X-linked recessive. How we can identify? Just by following few tips, we can easily identify that. First, if you see autosomal dominant, first thing you remember, any dominant trait, if it is in the diagram, any dominant trait if you have, there will not be any skip of generation. Dominant trait is passing through generations means if the diagram is showing any dominant trait, there will not be any skip of generation. This first point you have to remember. Second point, affected individuals have at least one affected parent. Okay, affected individuals will have at least one affected parent. Here you can also keep, this is unaffected means definitely it is in homozygous recessive condition. No, this is affected, either it can be heterozygous or it can be homozygous. Okay, it can be heterozygous or homozygous. If it is heterozygous, then definitely affected individuals will have at least one affected parent. Okay. Third point, affected parents can also have, it is not like affected parents will completely have affected children only. Affected parents can also have unaffected children. Of these 3 points, 2 points you keep it in your mind. First thing, if it is autosomal dominant, there will not be any skip of generation in the pedigree diagram. Second thing, affected individuals will have at least one affected parent. These 2 points are most important. If you remember this, you can easily identify autosomal dominant trait pedigree diagram. Okay. Now we will look into autosomal recessive. Autosomal recessive trait passing, if you see, skip of generation is seen. Skip of generation is clearly seen in autosomal recessive. If you clearly see this is homozygous affected, autosomal recessive affected parent, unaffected parent. See, these are the offsprings of this parent. And they are unaffected. Okay, unaffected. So the skip of generation is seen. This is parental generation, generation 1 and generation 2. Okay, so skip of generation can be seen in the autosomal recessive disease. Next, unaffected parents can have affected children. unaffected parents can have affected children also. If you see in the second generation, unaffected parents can have affected children. Possibility is there. If both the parents are heterozygous, then of course any of the offsprings can be homozygous recessive, no? In that case, unaffected parents can have affected children. Clear? So these are the important points you have to remember with respect to autosomal recessive disease. Next, coming to X-linked dominant. Again, whenever you see dominant, there will not be any skip of generation. You will see disease in every generation. Second point, most important point with respect to X-linked dominant is all daughters of the affected father are affected. All the daughters of affected father are affected. Here if you see, male father is affected and all the daughters of the affected father are affected. Okay, and disease will never transfer from father to son. In that pedigree diagram, disease will never transfer from father to son. If you look into any pedigree diagram where the disease is from father to son, then what type of disease it is? Y-linked disease. It is what disease ma? Y-linked disease. And there is a possibility of autosomal disease also. Autosomal disease also. Okay, if the disease is passing from father to son. Fine. Never it will be X-linked disease. Never X-linked disease is passed from father to son. So here X-linked dominant, all the daughters of the affected father are affected. Next, disease never transforms from father to son and there will not be any skip of generation. These are the points you have to remember. For example, father is heterozygous, let us assume he is affected, and mother is unaffected. One X chromosome transferring for each daughter leads to the disease, right? X chromosome transfer to each daughter will cause the disease. If it is homozygous, definitely all the daughters will be affected. If it is heterozygous, possibilities are there. Okay. So this you have to remember. No skip of generation, all the daughters of affected father are affected and disease never transfers from father to son. This is with respect to X-linked dominant disease. Next, X-linked recessive disease. Definitely skip of generation will be there. Here comes the concept of carrier daughter. Okay, here comes the concept of carriers. Okay, X-linked recessive two diseases I said, you know, color blindness and hemophilia. Many a times questions are asked in NEET with respect to those two diseases. Do remember, here skip of generation is seen and criss-cross pattern of inheritance. You have to remember this with respect to X-linked recessive disease. The disease is transferred from affected father to son through a daughter. Okay, from father through daughter it is transferred to grandson. Okay, and sometimes from grandmother through son it is transferred to granddaughter also sometimes, but most of the cases this is highlighted where a disease is transferred through carrier female. Disease is transferred through carrier female, which is nothing but criss-cross pattern of inheritance. This will be the pattern of inheritance. Next, disease will again never transfers from father to son. Disease is never transferred as we have observed it previously. So yes, clearly you can identify X-linked diseases beta. X-linked recessive disease to criss-cross pattern of inheritance you can see, skip of generation you can see. X-linked dominant though you can easily analyze as all the daughters of the affected father are affected and there will not be any skip of generation. Autosomal dominant you can clearly look into or identify autosomal dominant with just one trait. Just a minute. With just one trait, that affected individuals will have at least one affected parent. In the F1 generation, affected individuals will have at least one affected parent and there is no skip of generation. This you remember for identifying autosomal dominant. And autosomal recessive, definitely skip of generation will be, and unaffected parents in the successive generation, unaffected parents will have at least one affected children. Okay, so this you have to remember with respect to this. Now let us solve few questions, few of the previous year questions also, so that we will get good confidence in solving the questions. Just a second, ma. Yes. So here if you see, in the following human pedigree, the symbols represent the affected individuals. Symbols will represent the affected individuals. Identify the type of given pedigree he is asking. Unaffected parents having affected children. Just by looking into this, we can go for autosomal recessive. Just by looking into this, we can go for autosomal recessive. Let us confirm one more thing also, whether there is skip of generation or not. Yes, if you look here, there is a skip of generation. In this generation, there is no disease. And just by looking into that, don't go for the option. Once you apply and see. Yeah, if you apply, here let us take it as heterozygous. Let us take this also heterozygous. When both are heterozygous, of course there is a possibility of the disease here. And here let us take homozygous or heterozygous, then skip of generation can be observed. Here if they are heterozygous again, then disease possibility is there. Yes, if we are applying also, it is showing autosomal recessive. This is how you need to solve the pedigree analysis question. First you apply the tips which I have told you, then you apply the alleles and see. Then it will be confirmed that it is autosomal recessive. Fine. Next. Here if you see again, study the pedigree chart given below. Unaffected parents have affected children. Unaffected parents have affected children. Let us assume both of them are heterozygous. If we see, then definitely there is a possibility of disease, right? Definitely there is a possibility of disease. We will look into the options too. Inheritance of recessive sex in linked disease is hemophilia. Wrong. Hemophilia is not, here there is no sex linked recessive disease. There is no X-linked recessive disease because we can't see the crisscross pattern of inheritance, right? There is no crisscross pattern of inheritance. Here if you can see clearly here also, unaffected parents have affected individuals. Unaffected parents are having affected individuals. Okay. So this is not X-linked recessive. Next, inheritance of sex-linked inborn error metabolism phenylketonuria. Phenylketonuria is not X-linked, no, it is autosomal recessive, so this option is also wrong. Inheritance of condition like phenylketonuria as autosomal recessive disease. Yes, this is correct because phenylketonuria is autosomal recessive. In the place of phenylketonuria, if he is giving you sickle cell anemia, cystic fibrosis, thalassemia, any of those diseases are correct. If at all he is giving those diseases in the place of phenylketonuria also, this statement is correct with respect to this pedigree chart. Clear beta? Next. This question asked in 2023, very simple and easy question. It is based on the symbols of pedigree analysis. So if you look into it, which one of the following symbols represent mating between relatives, he is asking. Mating between relatives, I said you two lines will adjoin the square and circle, male and female. So then it is what? Then it is what? Mating between relatives. Option 1 is correct. These are what? Affected individuals, unaffected parents with affected child, and this is normal mating. Keep it in your mind. Next. Last question if we see, look into it more clearly. Here again a pedigree is given below for the disease that is autosomal dominant. It is what, autosomal dominant. What would be the genetic makeup for the first generation? Generation 1 he is asking you. So if you look into this properly, blue color is predicting the affected individuals. So he is saying autosomal dominant. Autosomal dominant disease means, this is diseased means it can be either in the homozygous dominant or heterozygous dominant. This is unaffected means this should be pakka in the homozygous recessive condition only. This should be definitely in the homozygous recessive condition. So now if you look into the alleles properly, here heterozygous of the female wrong, homozygous correct, and this possibility is there, this is also correct. Let us also check other two, this is wrong, and the heterozygous dominant, this also wrong. So the option will be B. Okay, let us also fill other generations also. Let us also fill the alleles of other generation as the disease is given in the question itself. So yes, here it is again heterozygous, homozygous. Both possibilities are there. This should be homozygous. Here again both the possibilities are there and this should be in the homozygous recessive condition. This 3 should be in the homozygous recessive condition. These can be in either homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive condition. These 2 again can be in the homozygous recessive. When the disease is given, it is easy for you people to predict the alleles, predict the combination of alleles. It is pretty much easy. This is how the questions can be asked you. If you have further any doubts or any other things to get clarified, you can drop your doubts in the comment box. I will be answering all your doubts. Okay, and let me end this with some excited news. Here in the NEET world, your step to medicine in Narayanguda, we are starting a crash course from March 24th, which is for 40 days. Okay, and it will be in English. It is applied, it is available both in offline and online mode. Online mode, you have to, if you want to access, you have to get into app called as Med World, where you can install it in the Play Store. Okay, so this you can get through just in 15,000, including hostel facilities. The coaching is provided better, so make use of it. And 10 mock tests are for free with video explanations, and you will be having 5 part tests, daily practice tests also. Here the main agenda of our coaching institute is stress-free education, and where each and every student is monitored properly and each and every student is taken care of properly. Yes, thank you and see you soon in the next class.